I know I wrote a book, right? It's called Buy a Game and it's free. Click the link down there, you got it.
DreAllDay.com.
What's going on, everybody? Dre Baldwin with DreAllDay.com. Today I want to talk about leadership. This is a topic I get asked often about by athletes, basketball players especially, since I'm a basketball player. And they say, Dre, how can I be more of a leader for my team? Not everybody on my team is as serious as me. Not everybody on my team has the same game that I have. Not everybody on the team, they can't do what I can do. But I feel like you feel like you're handcuffed because you're on a team with people who aren't as serious or aren't as good as you. So you feel like you really can't. If you try to get on them, they don't really listen to you. If you don't say anything, and they just keep being not good enough, or up to your standards, how can you start leading people? Now, one thing that I've always said about leadership, and I've done videos on leadership, plenty of videos on leadership that are on YouTube already. Look them up. But this is the topic I'm talking about here today. I discussed this on my podcast. My podcast is called Work on Your Game, and I discuss it in even more depth, even more detail than I'm going to do in this video. So make sure you subscribe to my podcast. It's on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, all those places. Go find it. It's free as every day. But anyway, one of the things that I always say about leadership is that you got to lead by example first. Before you can say anything to anybody, you must lead by example. Meaning, if you're going to get on one of your teammates about not working hard in practice, you got to always work hard in practice. You want to get upset with one of your teammates because they're not making open jump shots or they're not playing good enough defense. You better be making those jump shots and you better be playing good defense. So anything that you want to lead a team on, all you need to do is set the example by doing it yourself and force other people to come up to your standard. Now, if you're already doing that, what I'm going to talk about here today is for the people who are already doing that. If you haven't already done that, then you need to do that. You can still listen to what I'm going to say today, but this isn't even for you yet until you've actually set a standard that everybody already knows that you're going to deliver, and you're delivering at a certain level on a consistent basis that people can come to expect it. Only after you've done that does this part that I'm going to tell you today even apply to you. All right, everybody clear on that? Great. Now let me give you these points about leading verbally. If you want to be able to lead people verbally or say things to them, if you want to tell somebody, yo, you need to step your game up, tell somebody, yo, you need to work on your jumper. This applies not only just to sports. This applies also to business. If you're going to own a business and have employees, you want to call one of your employees out. You want to yell at somebody because they're not doing the job the way they need to. If you're in a sales organization and everybody's not selling at the same pace that you're selling, and you want to motivate them. You want to give them a speech that gets them going. Listen, first of all, you got to set the example. Second of all, there's a certain way to communicate verbally that is going to get across to people and actually get results. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video right here. Number one thing you must do, if you're going to verbally lead any group of people, whether it's your family, it could be your spouse, your significant other, it could be your sports team, it can be people you work with, it can be people who work for you if you're a supervisor or a manager or an owner of some sort. Number one thing you got to do is have open lines of clear communication. Open lines of clear communication. What exactly do I mean by that? This is what I mean. It means when you're communicating with people, your communication has to go deeper than hi and bye. It has to go deeper than, hey, how you doing this morning? It has to go deeper than, I'll see you tomorrow. It has to be more than that. And if you're going to ask that how you're doing question, how are you doing? Ask it and actually mean it. Ask it and actually mean, how are you doing? I really want to know how you're doing. I really want to know what's going on. When you ask somebody that question, really mean it. That means stop what you're doing, get off the phone, get off the computer, stop looking in every other direction while you're saying it, look at the person in their face, look them in their eyes and ask them, hey, how are you doing? What's going on with you? What's new with you? What have you been working on lately? What are your challenges? What's going on in your mind? What's going on in your life right now? You got to actually want to know the answer. Because when you ask somebody that question, they're going to give you an answer if they feel like you actually want to hear the answer. If they feel like you really mean it when you say it, you're not just saying it because it's become a habit to just say, hey, how you doing? I say it to people all the time. I get in the elevator and I say, hey, how you doing? I don't really mean it. I don't want them to tell me how they're doing. I'm not even looking at them. By the time I finish saying it, I'm probably not even looking at them anymore. I'm looking back at my phone or with the person I'm with, or I'm just staring off into space. I don't really mean it. So if you're going to say, how are you doing? You got to actually mean it. And people got to feel that you mean it. And when they feel that you mean it, they'll start telling you. And when they tell you how they're doing, guess what? They're going to ask you how you're doing. And you need to communicate back to them at the same level that they're communicating back to you, or at an even higher level, because again, that's going to build rapport between the two of you when they know that you want to hear what's going on with them, and they know that you're going to tell them what's going on with you. Now, if you being a leader, you being a boss, this is very important. It doesn't mean that you need to dish all your dirt to your employees or to the teammates who are not at your level, but it does mean you need to open up to a certain level that they know you're telling them something real, that you're being real with them. Because if you're not being real with people, there's no way you can ever lead them verbally, because they know you're being fake. We all have a sixth sense when someone's being fake. You ever talk to someone who was just being fake with you and you knew they were being fake, therefore it actually worsened the relationship between you and that person? Of course you have. So if you're fake with other people, they can tell you're being fake the same way that you can tell when other people are being fake with you. So don't be fake. You got to actually mean this when you do it. The number one point here is having open lines of communication. Ask questions, get answers. When someone else asks you a question, you got to be willing to communicate with that person. Don't be so big or so high and mighty or so much better than everybody else that you won't have communication with those people. Because if you don't communicate and they don't feel like they can trust you enough to talk to you or believe anything that you say when you do talk, they're not going to be willing to be led by you. There's a story that I was just reading about Kobe Bryant. It was an old story from back in like the early 2000s, how when he first came to the NBA, he couldn't lead his team. He wanted to lead, but nobody wanted to follow him because he didn't have open lines of communication with his teammates. He didn't talk to people that much. Of course, you had the things on the court when he would try to do too much one-on-one or not pass the ball in the shack. And we know those issues were happening, but it was also just his lack of communication skills. He didn't have the communication skills, meaning he didn't ask people how they were doing. He didn't really care if he did ask, and he never opened up to other people. Therefore, nobody wanted to follow him, despite the fact that he was so damn good at basketball. And once he started opening up just a little bit, he got a little bit better at it, the team was able to start succeeding. And you can go find the articles and read it yourself if you want to know more on the Kobe tip. But the first point is you got to have open lines of communication. What's the second thing you got to do if you want to lead people verbally? Any type of people, business, family, sports team. Number two thing you must do is you have to point out the positive just as often, if not more, than you point out the negative. How many of you ever had a job and your boss or your supervisor or your manager or the owner came in, saw you doing something that for whatever reason they felt like you were doing it wrong or you were messing up or you forgot something, and they pointed out what you did wrong? All of you have had bosses that have done that before. If you're a boss, you could be a boss in your family, you could be a boss in your sport, you could be a boss anywhere where people are looking up to you and they listen to you when you say something. How often are you pointing out someone doing something wrong or correcting someone's mistake or telling them that they missed something? Compare that to how often you catch somebody doing the right thing. How often do you point out to your son or your daughter or to the players on your team or to your teammates, if you're the coach, to the players, to your teammates, if you're one of the players, to your employees if you run a business? How many times do you catch people doing the right thing or just commend them for doing something positively or just point out that they're consistently doing the right thing? You may say thank you. How often do you just take time out and say, you know what, you're very consistent with that. You show up, you're the first person at the office every single day. I asked you to do this task every day and you've been doing it every day for the last 9 months. I want to make sure you know that I'm recognizing that and I appreciate it. How often are you pointing out the positives compared to how often you're pointing out the negatives? That's a good question for all of us. Even if you're in a situation where you're not the leader, where you're not the person on top, maybe you're equal with other people. Maybe other people are above you. How often are you pointing out positives compared to pointing out the negatives? Understand that when you point out the negatives in another person, if you have not yet established leadership to the point that they're willing to follow you and take your cues verbally, even when it's something that they may not like, there is a way that you can get them to do that. And I'm going to tell you that in the next point. But if you haven't established that yet and you're pointing out more negatives than positives or pointing out all negatives and never a positive, I've had bosses who never pointed out anything positive. They never said, hey, you did a great job there. I like the way you handled that customer. You did a good job in increasing the sale and getting them to buy an extra product. Hey, you did great at showing on that screen and then playing good defense and boxing out for the rebound. I've had people who never pointed those things out, but if I messed up, they were the first ones to point it out. Often they would do it verbally in front of other people. So it could cause people to lose face, meaning they feel embarrassed, they feel less of a person, they start to resent you because of you doing that, because you're always pointing out negative, you never point out the positive. If you haven't done that and you start pointing out negatives, all you're doing is generating negative energy. And we all know what they say about energy, about karma, right? Positive attracts positive, negative attracts negative. So when you keep putting out negative energy, all you're doing is building up negative energy in your organization. And it's not just between you and the person you're talking to, mind you, because if I'm the boss at a company and I got 5 employees and I point out something negative that another person did and I keep finding negative things that they're doing, but I never point out the positive, guess what? The other 4 employees that I have, they know about it. They might be there when I'm doing it. They probably will hear about it when the employees are talking, because I'm not there at every conversation they're having. When they're talking amongst themselves, guess what they're talking about? Damn, Dre just pointed out more negative, more negative. He doesn't notice the fact that I'm here every day doing my work. 99% of the time I get it right, but all he does is find the one time out of 100 that I get things wrong. He's always pointing it out. You think people don't notice that? You think the team doesn't notice that? You think that doesn't permeate throughout the entire organization? Of course it does. That negative energy is just going to go through everywhere until eventually the organization may crumble from within, just because of a mistake that you're making and you don't even know that you're making it. That's why I'm making this video. So point number 2, we're talking about here how to lead verbally. Point number 2 is that you must start pointing out the positives in people and not just their negatives. Point number 3, this is the most important point of this whole video. If you want to lead people verbally, if you want to be able to, because you might be thinking to yourself, well, Dre, what about the times when somebody does mess up? What if I have a teammate who really made a bonehead play on defense, or I have an employee who really messed up on something that I told them 10 times already how to fix, and I really need to get on them. I really need to jump on them. I need to cuss them out. I need to yell at them. I need to discipline this person. What do I need to do then? How do I do that? If you're telling me I need to point out positives and all this, what do I need to do when it gets to the point that I actually feel the need to do this because I think it's going to help our business? How do I do that? And how do I give somebody this negative feedback that they may not like in a moment without losing this person, or without hurting the relationship, or without hurting my organization? When am I qualified to do that, and how do I do it? Here it is. The only way it is okay to jump on somebody, curse them out, yell at them, maybe embarrass them in front of other people, point out something that they did, browbeat other people verbally. The only time it's okay is this: when you have already established, not by your standards, but by their standards, you've already established that you actually care about them as a person, and not just them as an employee, not just them as a player, not just the stats you are trying to get, not just the championship you're trying to win, not just the sales you're trying to make. You must establish that you actually give a damn about somebody as a person. You care about their success personally as a person before you can jump on their behind and say, yo, you really messed this up. Really yell at them, really maybe kind of beat them down verbally because of a mistake that they made that you feel they shouldn't have made. If they feel, understand this, if that person does not feel that you actually care about them, it doesn't matter even if you are logically correct in pointing out their mistake. They may have really made a mistake. Yes, they really did mess up. Yes, you really did tell them about that 10 times and then they made the exact same mistake again. Yes, they really do deserve to get yelled at and punished and disciplined, or whatever you want to call it. They really do deserve it. Logically, you are absolutely right. But if that person does not feel like you give a damn about them and you're doing that, you're losing them. You are hurting the relationship. You are beating down, you are breaking down the foundation of that relationship, even if you are absolutely right in doing it. This is super important. There's a guy who I worked with a youth group, and he was telling me, this guy was named Coach Dunn in South Florida. And he said, listen, Dre, the only reason I can yell at these young men and I can get on them and I can get in their face and they still keep coming back to me is because they know I care about them. They know that I care about their success. They know that I want the best for them. They know that I'm not just here for a paycheck. I'm not just here because it's my job. I'm not just here because I want to get some stat. I'm not just here for the publicity or anything like that. He said they know that I'm here because I give a damn. They know that I care about them. So when I jump on them and yell at them and all that, they know it's coming from a place of me caring about their well-being. It's not about just me being an authoritarian. It's not about me being a dictator. It's not about me being in charge, quote unquote. It's not about me being a boss or a supervisor or even a coach. It's about the fact that I care about them. And they know I care. That's why when I get on them, they know where it's coming from. As opposed to, how many of you have ever worked for a boss who you know he didn't really care about you personally? He just cared about making sure the company was ran well, that they made X number of dollars, or making sure he looked good personally. How many of you ever worked for somebody like that? How many of you have ever had a teacher or a coach in a sport who you knew they were just there for the paycheck? You knew they were just there. It's not even that they didn't give a damn about the work, but you know they didn't give a damn about you as a person. You ever had a teacher who you know they just didn't care about you personally? They didn't care about your personal welfare or your personal success. All they cared about is, all right, I work here. This is what I got to do to keep my job or to move up to the next level of my job. And y'all in the way for me doing that. So listen, this is what you need to do. And even when they got on you, you knew they weren't really talking to you. It was more about them than it was about you. How many of you had a coach who was like that? How many of you have had a supervisor or a boss or a manager who was like that? How many of you have had a parent maybe who was like that? How many of you, here's the real question, How many of you have been that person? How many of you have been a person when you're talking to other people, it's not even like you're talking to them as a person. You're talking to them as a number. You're talking to them as a stat. You're talking to them as another student. They got to come through my class this year. You're talking to them as another player I got to deal with. Here's another email I got to respond to. How many of you talk to people as if you're talking to them as a person and you care about them when you're getting on them? Someone you have some type of relationship with, as compared to you're talking to them as just another number, just another body, just another person coming through asking me a question. I'm talking about when you actually have a relationship with them, not some random person you just met or some random person who tweeted you or Instagrammed you. I'm talking about when you have a relationship, meaning you're working with these people on a consistent basis in whatever context. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? So I'm not talking about somebody just emails you randomly. I'm talking about someone you actually know, or they know you, or y'all work together. So let me recap my points here. Actually, before I recap, let me give you one more thing. I want to tell you how to do this. Because I told you the what, let me tell you how to do this. How do you put yourself in a position where you could eventually, maybe one day, start doing these things where you can actually get on people as a leader. You can walk into the locker room and yell at one of your teammates, or you can curse out one of your coworkers, or you can discipline one of your employees because they messed up, and they'll take it. They'll understand it. Maybe later on, maybe not in the moment, they'll understand it. They'll know that you were justified in doing so, and they will work even harder. They'll be even better for you as a result of it. How can you get into the space? How can you even begin? Here's how you begin. You must open yourself up. You must open yourself up to everyone else. And how do you do that? You got to start dealing with people on a personal level, outside of work, outside of school, outside of practice, outside of the games, outside of business. You got to open yourself up to people outside of the work or school or business or team environment, whatever it is y'all doing. I was reading an article about LeBron James where Tristan Thompson, who played on the Cavs for a few years before LeBron came back to Cleveland, Tristan Thompson said, before LeBron came back here, we never did team dinners where everybody went to one place and ate dinner together. We never went out as a group when we were on the road. We never did any of that until LeBron came here. LeBron brought that team thing back to us. He would come in and say, look, we all gonna come to dinner at my house. So we all gonna come, everybody come to my house so we can watch the Super Bowl. Or everybody come to my hotel room so we can chill and do this, that, and the third. He brought that team thing to the group. And if you think that when you work with people or you play a sport with people or whatever you're doing with people, if you think everybody just shows up to work and everything's going to get done and is going to be perfect, and that what you guys do when you're not at work, that lack of connection outside of work does not have anything to do with what happens on the court or in business, you got it wrong. That connection or lack of connection outside of, let's just use sports, outside of the game, outside of practice, if y'all only talk to each other and meet each other and you only dealing with certain people when you see them in practice, but you never deal with them anywhere else, you think that lack of off the court chemistry may show itself on the court? Absolutely it can. And that doesn't mean that you can't be a winning team. Doesn't mean you could possibly even win the championship. Who knows? Depending on what the competition is like and the skills of everybody in the group. But I guarantee you that if you can get some chemistry created off the court, outside of work, outside of the business, outside of the job that you all are doing, if you can create chemistry with the group there, I guarantee the results and the camaraderie that you have in work, on the court, in the game, in the business, I guarantee those results will increase. Absolute facts. I'm going to give you these 3 points again to recap. Number one, if you want to lead people verbally, this is the point, the topic here. You want to lead people verbally, number one thing you must do, you got to have some open lines of clear communication. Meaning, instead of just high and by, talk to people. How are you doing? What's going on with your life? How are your kids? What's the new thing you're working on? What's some ways that I can help you in any way? And when people ask you the same questions, you got to answer them. You got to have communication where people feel like they know you, where they feel like they can talk to you, where they feel like you will talk to them. That's very important. Number two, when you are working with people, especially when you're in a position of leadership, catch people doing positive things. Point out the positives about them. Catch them doing something great. Recognize them in front of other people so that they can feel good. It builds their self-esteem, builds their enthusiasm, and it builds everybody else's self-esteem and enthusiasm because they know you're pointing out positives, so they're not afraid of you, hoping that you don't catch them doing something wrong. Catch them doing positive things more often than you catch them doing negative things. That's point number two. That's reinforcement. Positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. If you're reinforcing something by pointing out the negative, all you're doing is making them more paranoid and afraid. If you're pointing out the positive, all you're doing is reinforcing that behavior. You're going to do it more often. Number three, if you want to jump on people verbally, you must establish, and is according to them, not according to you According to them, you give enough of a damn, and that's why you're jumping on them. You're getting on them because you give a damn about them as a person, not them as a stat, as a number, as a teammate, or for your stats to win the championship or to get this number of sales for the quota. Is that you give a damn about that person as a human being, not just as a number, or not just as another interchangeable part that's going to be somebody new in 6 months. And how are you going to do all this? You got to start communicating with people outside of your area of work, outside of school, outside of business, outside of practice for the basketball team. Open yourself up, and they will open themselves up. If you want to sum this whole thing up in one sentence, that's it. Open yourself up, they will open themselves up. That is how you lead verbally. If you're not subscribed to the Work on Your Game podcast, make sure you do it. Help yourself, do yourself a favor, do your life a favor. I absolutely guarantee you it will be worth your investment. And if it's not, you let me know. Work on your game. DreAllDay.com.